so much for joining us today on Feelin Good, sponsored by Warren County Community Services. Well, today we are experiencing our new year of 2021. And along with the experience of turning from 2020 to 2021, I thought it might be a good opportunity for us to think about our maybe resolutions for the new year, or just, some additional kinds of activities that we might want to consider starting during the winter months. And when I was thinking about who do I know that is recently retired, I put that in quotes, retired, right, because that just gives you an opportunity to reimagine the next chapters in your life. I had to be thinking about my friend, Molly Wray. And so I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Molly Wray. And she is, I would say, one of the most creative, talented people that I can think of when it comes to sports, the arts, and just everything that she does. She always puts an extra effort into. So I was so happy that you were available today, Molly, to join us. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Shelly. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the kind comments.
I wanted to introduce you, or give you an opportunity to introduce yourself by saying we are both retired educators.
Right.
We are both tennis players.
Right.
And Molly and her husband, Bert, are very accomplished pickleball players as well. So I have met Molly years ago through Springboro High School, through different projects we worked on there.
Right.
And also we have met on the court at Harmon Park in Lebanon, playing tennis together. And then I have also watched Molly demonstrate pickleball. And then I more recently have been just amazed with the artwork that Molly has posted on our Facebook website. So without further ado, Molly, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, your experiences in teaching, etc.
All right, where to start? Well, I originated in Phoenix, Arizona, one of 5 children. And then at the age of 7, we moved here to Ohio. So I have been an Ohioan since the 3rd grade here, raised by a mother, a single mother who, my father died when I was 6. So she raised us, and she taught us to be very resourceful because we lived on a very limited income, as many people do. And I think that was the start of me looking for ways to be creative in a cheap way. We didn't have any money. So you had to figure out what you could do with a paper bag, what you could do with, an old tin can. Do you have to throw it away, or can you kick it around the yard and make a game out of it? And I think that's where some of my creativity started. And so anyway, I graduated from Springboro High School. I did play a lot of sports there, tennis. One of the first girls on the boys tennis team there. It was a lot of fun. We didn't have, this was initially, I think Title IX was 1976, 1979 is when I played. And so we didn't have a girls team yet. So that was a lot of fun. And that was kind of my introduction to a racket sport, other than my mother teaching me how to swing a racket, a few years earlier at Tamarack Hills in Springboro, where I grew up. So anyway, went to Miami, got a degree there. It took me 5.5 years because I had to work full time, because when you have limited resources, you do what you can. I'm not the only one. My husband did that, and many others I know, maybe even you. We did what we had to do to get our education. So graduated from Miami, got my master's, from Wright State University after I had already had 2 children in 1992. And then I have taught Springboro from 1986 until 2015 when I recently retired. So I've been retired for 5 years now. And it has been a wonderful ride. I love teaching, but I love what I do outside of teaching as well. And I encourage all of you who are listening, just to find a passion in whatever you're doing, whether you're still working or whether you're retired, there's always something you can do to actually apply passion to and enjoy, life, especially during these times when we're stuck indoors. That can be a challenge.
Before we leave the area of your teaching, tell our audience a little bit about, I was always very interested in like mental health prevention programs
yes.
In the schools, and I volunteered in a couple of programs.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Visited area high schools. And that's when I think I first kind of reconnected with you. And I would like for our audience to know a little bit more about how you, I think you were one of the originators of the Warren County Teen Council Group.
Teen Alliance Council, right. Jane Kahn, actually, with the Abuse and Rape Crisis Shelter, started the Warren County Teen Alliance. And I was fortunate to be able to help her that first year she started it. Now Megan Crouch, who is with the Violence Free Coalition of Warren County, is heading them up, and they're still doing great work. But while I was involved with the Teen Alliance, we also organized Redo Days. My first Redo Day, which many listeners, you may have heard of Redo Day or maybe participated in one like Shelly and I have, was at Lebanon High School. And that was in 2008. And I fell in love with that program. It was a wonderful program, bringing all these kids together to have them really find out their commonalities with each other and learn to support each other. What an eye-opening day. And I thought, we've got to do that at Springboro High School. And so I went to Ron Malone, who was the principal at the time, and said, can we please do a Redo Day here? And he was so supportive. What a wonderful man. He's retired now, enjoying his life as well. He said, sure, we'll go ahead and do it. And so if you organize it, so I was able to organize it and get volunteers like you, because we needed about 20 adults to help us out to come to our school and do the same thing. And so for the remainder of that time, until I retired in 2015, we were able to have a Redo Day every year at Springboro as well. But Lebanon was the one, the school that spearheaded that for us. And what a wonderful program.
It was great to volunteer. I was a volunteer for Redo at Lebanon and Springboro, Franklin and Waynesville, and then Kings. So I was able to, well, I was such a believer in, and I could see what a unique opportunity for those students to see us, who were the volunteers, because we had breakout groups and we'd have small right. discussions, and then see their peers in that kind of a setting. And I've heard from students since then that say they remember those days. Don't you?
They hold those days dearly. They really, in fact, I've had students tell me it was one of the most inspiring, meaningful events they participated in while they were in high school. In fact, Redo Days were probably the most meaningful experiences I had. I had a lot of meaningful experiences as an educator. I don't discount that, but as far as being able to impact the masses to make a positive change within a school environment, Redo Days were wonderful. And so thank you for bringing that up, because those are great memories of mine. And I hope that Springboro and all our community schools can continue to push programs forward like Redo Days, whether they're called Redo or not, that really bring the kids together.
That concept, right?
Concept, right.
Yes, I do as well. So I had to get a plug in for that.
I'm so glad you did. Thank you very much.
Well, let's carry on the journey from the days. Well, once you're a teacher, though, don't you always find that you're drawn toward opportunities where you're in a teaching role or you're in a learning role? Right. And I know I'm very involved with lifelong learning through Miami University's ILR program. And I would love for you to be a presenter, incidentally. So we'll talk more about that later. Okay,
I would enjoy that. It's not too technical because I'm pretty basic.
Well, one of the areas I thought might be an interesting, course, and our audience might be interested in, is how did you begin to really find yourself in the art world? Because when they see these artistic examples that we're going to be showing during this discussion, they will be as amazed as I am. So tell us maybe, how did that all begin and how did that evolve over time?
Well, I want to tell you, for all of you who've want to do art, but you're afraid to, my first experience with art was Springboro High School, as a sophomore year, and I signed up for an art class, and the first day of art, the teacher, his name was Roger Belcher. If anybody from Springboro is listening, you'll know who I'm talking about. Scared me to death. I went out of that class and went and withdrew. He scared me. I don't know what it was about him. Being raised without a father, maybe having a big booming voice in there was just overwhelming, but I couldn't do it. And I went and I told my counselor, can I please pull out of class? And so I went and took another art, which was choir, which I loved, with David Leist, who is a Lebanon.
Oh, yes.
You know David?
Yes, I was in
He was my choir teacher.
I was in community theater with David.
Right, so David's wonderful. So I had an opportunity to meet David. David, if you're watching, hi, I miss you. I still know your birthday too. Anyway, so I pulled out of art class and I thought, if I want to do art, I'm going to teach myself. And I always, you may be like this too, I always saw things that people did and I thought, kind of cocky attitude, if they can do it, I can do it. I just got to figure out how. And so when I became a teacher, I also eventually became a Muse Machine counselor, which is a program that introduces kids to the arts, a variety of different performing arts and visual arts and everything. Well, we took some wonderful trips to New York City and all around to learn more about the arts and really explore adventurous, ways to explore the arts. And I remember seeing a painting in one of the museums. I can't remember where it was, but I saw, what was it? You know what it was? It was at the MoMA. I saw Starry Night, Van Gogh's Starry Night at the MoMA, and I was mesmerized by actually being in the same room with it. To reach out and know that an alarm's going to sound if you come an inch from it. You have to step back, but you want to touch it so badly. And I remember thinking, that is so cool. But then that cocky Molly came into play, and I thought, I could probably paint something like that. I could probably do that. That looks, how you see cubism or you see some of that new abstract stuff and you think they just threw paint up there. Well, Van Gogh didn't just throw paint up there. I mean, that was a meaningful painting. And I thought I could do that. But in the meantime, I get home and I start thinking, can I actually paint? Could I actually do some of those things that I saw? I started looking for paintings I thought might be more doable for me. And I came across Picasso's Friendship. Friendship is a painting that is cubism, that is just one of his typical cubism paintings in a variety of different earthy colors. And I thought, that's lines and color. I could do that. So I painted Friendship first. And after I finished Friendship, it felt really good. I found a frame for it. And then I thought I want to do another one. And so I started just Google, folks, Google is your friend. Google search famous paintings, cubism paintings. You'll find all kinds of cool images if you click on images. And I started looking through images and I found, the next one I found, I believe, was Picasso's The Guitar Player. And it was another one that was cubism. It was gorgeous. A lot of I love earthy colors, and so I thought, I'm going to give that a try, but I couldn't find a frame. And I discovered that because I had a painting there. And I discovered that if I went to Michael's or if I went to Hobby Lobby and I had them make a frame, it was going to be $250 for this frame for my painting that I did on a $4.99 canvas. And I thought, I've got to be more resourceful. I cannot spend that much money on these paintings, you know? And so I decided my philosophy would be from now on to find beautiful frames first and then figure out what painting I wanted to go into that frame. So I did find a frame at our local Goodwill here that fit my Picasso, the guitar player, fortunately. But then after that, before I actually went on to do my paintings, I thought I've got to find a frame first because I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on a frame. So then I went on to do, this is an interesting one, Picasso's The Old Guitarist. The Old Guitarist was from Picasso's Blue period. And I love the emotion. Like you said, you're really, really into emotional health and mental health. You think it's so important. For some reason, I've always identified with like paintings that draw you in emotionally. And the guitar, the old guitarist drew me in. The way his body is shaped, those spider-like fingers, the sunken body, the sallow face. I mean, it was just so much pain. And I've never felt like I was a person that had a lot of pain in my life, but for some reason, because I have a lot of empathy, I was drawn to that painting and I thought I've got to do it. And I had another painting in my house at the time in a beautiful cherry frame that I didn't like because it was basically just a mass reproduced, botanical thing. And I thought, I am going to turn that painting over. It was on cardboard. And I'm going to paint the old guitarist on a piece of cardboard. What do I have to lose? And put it back into that frame. And so I have the old guitarist, and you'll see a picture of it. I've shared with you. I have the old guitarist in a frame in my room at this house now, next to the piano, which I call it the music room. We had to find a house here in Lebanon that had a room for our piano. And so it's in the music room. So it's there. So, and then from there, just continued to go on. And I found Picasso's The Blue Nudes. And I started painting the blue nudes, very simple lines. The woman who has her back to you, her legs crossed, the beautiful black bun in her hair. I thought, I can do that. And that looks like so much fun. For folks listening, it's not hard. It really isn't. You just have to have the time and the space and a few materials. I found out you don't even have to have expensive paint, Shelly.
I was going to ask you, what did you use? Typically, what acrylic paint?
Acrylic, yes,
okay.
Acrylic. In fact, that blue nude and Picasso's, the guitar player and Friendship were done with those little 99-cent bottle of paints that you find at Walmart in your craft section. You do not have to buy expensive paints to be able to create art. You really don't. I do have some, I've never painted with oils. I have oils, but I'm not really looking forward to it when I do because I know oils aren't as forgiving. The nice thing, folks, if you want to try painting, paint with acrylics because within 2 minutes, the acrylic paint is dry. And if you made a mistake, you paint right back over it.
Oh, I was going to say you can just wipe it or just chip it away a little bit.
Just go right back over it. And that's what it's so forgiving. So acrylic paints are wonderful. So those blue nudes that I did, I ended up having people tell me they liked them so much they wanted one. So I did one for my mother-in-law. I did one for, you may know Rupert, who's a retired attorney. He wanted one badly for his living room. So I did one for Rupert for Christmas, and he's a family member. So it was a gift to Rupert. And then I also donated one for auction for the Springboro High School Alumni Association.
I remember seeing that when you posted that on Facebook, and I was like, oh my gosh. I knew you could play tennis, but I didn't realize that you were such a painter, so.
I don't really think about this, you guys. I am an ape. I copy people. I mimic people. I've really been fortunate to be able to be a good mimicker. Like in tennis, when I used to watch Chrissy Everett play, it inspired me to play. And I'd watch her stroke. And then I'd go to Tamarack Hills, to the tennis courts, and get with somebody and try to pretend I was Chrissy and hit. And you may have done the same thing.
Yes.
Just like Chrissy. And I've noticed that I do the same thing with art. If I admire someone's art, instead of making my own, I'm like, I'm going to see if I can recreate what they've done, especially the famous artists. You know that they're already popular, well-known and loved, and you can't go wrong with creating something you know people already like. The chance you take when you create your own art is people are like, what is that? Or, why would you do that? So.
Well, but you have to have, that extra special skill and talent. I mean, I don't know. Although I have two canvases ready,
Yes.
And my oldest son, Kyle, started painting. And I would say, Kyle, where did you learn how to do that? Oh, Mom, I just do this, and I just started. And he did with acrylics, and he was doing all these things. So one year for Christmas, he gave me the two canvases along with a coupon, good to go to one of these, different paint party type things and so forth. Well, by the time I ever got around to using it, the place was no longer in business. So I still have the two blank canvases upstairs. So I might have you.
Let's have a painting party.
I'll have a painting party, because I would love to see what I could do. But he does so many things that I'm just like, oh my gosh. And he never really took art in school.
No, you don't have to. You just have to have a desire. You have to be inspired. I think that's all art is. We do our best art when we're inspired, whether we play the piano, whether we sing, whether we draw, whether we paint, whether we write. I mean, think about trying to create art without being inspired. It's so difficult. A teacher tells you to write a poem and you're not inspired. And you're like, the sky is blue, the ground is white. If I were outside, I'd fly a kite. That's all I can come up with, because I'm not inspired. But if you're experiencing angst or any type of excitement, you want to get it out on paper, you just come up with something amazing. And it's the same way with artworks. Creating the things I've created since going on from the Blue Nudes, I always found it. I thought it was beautiful. I wanted to recreate it. I knew that it would have meaning in some way. We went to the Dayton Art Institute for a wedding, and we're walking up that grand staircase right in the middle and spied this beautiful, beautiful assembly. It wasn't even a painting. It was a cluster of gemstones that looked like the galaxy. In fact, it was called Exploding Galaxy by John Tor.
Yes.
And my daughter and I, we were at the reception together, fell in love with it. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, can you make that?
Of course.
I steal it from them to give it to her. I said, well, I would love to. So I went and bought, first of all, I didn't buy a new canvas. That thing is really large. I went to the Salvation Army in Centerville, and I found a large canvas with a painting already on it, which you'll find a lot of people do. They paint right over old paintings. I've done that on many things. I went ahead and put my base of gesso. You don't really need gesso. I just put a base down over the old painting, and I started creating this beautiful exploding galaxy with thousands of little rhinestones and little black dots. But I noticed that the black dots in this painting, if you look real closely, they're raised. And I thought, how can I get my paint to raise? And I didn't want to go spend a lot of money on some type of medium to add to the paint I had. So I looked in my kitchen and I found something that was non-biodegradable, something that wasn't organic, because organic things will break down. So I didn't want to use cornstarch or flour. I got some baking soda and I added it to my black paint, put it in a squeeze bottle, made the black paint, which was just that cheap Walmart folk art paint. And I would just squeeze little drops. So when you look at that production, you'll see the thick drops on there, and it creates the galaxy. Now, John Toriano is an amazing artist. He used gems in a lot of his art. I did some research on him, rather respect for him. All of these artists that I copy, I'm brought to tears in respect for them. And I'll tell you about Van Gogh in a minute, but not Van Gogh, Gustav Klimt. But anyway, I went ahead and created it, and it was just so exciting to create it. I gave it to my daughter. We didn't call it Exploding Galaxy. I think we named it after a song, a Christian song about how God places the stars in the sky and he knows them by name.
Yes.
You place the stars in the sky and you know them by name. You're amazing, God. My daughter has a really strong faith, and I thought this will be a great reminder for you to look at every day, just how God's placed all those stars in the sky. So she had that through college. But getting back to the next thing I wanted to tell you about Gustav Klimt, I love Klimt's The Kiss, probably one of his most famous paintings. I always thought that would be such an interesting one to reproduce. So I went ahead and reproduced it. I found a frame at a garage sale over behind Speedway on Columbus Avenue, one of the homes back there. And I thought, this is a wonderful frame. I'm going to put the kiss in this. And so then I went ahead and built the painting around the frame. The reason I'm telling you this is so emotional is because we were able to travel for our daughter's wedding in 2016 to Europe. And we went to Vienna, Austria, to the Upper Belvedere, which is a beautiful museum right there in Vienna. And I almost fell to my knees. I tear up right now thinking about it. I saw the actual kiss. And you know, my kiss in my house is probably 2 feet wide by 4 feet tall. The one at the Belvedere, have you seen it? Have you been?
Not in person, but
the kiss is probably, I would say it's like 7 feet wide by seven by 7. It's gigantic. I never realized. But when I saw the actual real painting, it brought tears. And when I saw Van Gogh's Starry Night, the same thing. Just, I can't believe I'm in the same room where Van Gogh painted this painting while looking out the window at St. Remy, where he was in an institute because of mental health, looking out at the pastures and painting what he saw. And, you know, in that painting, if you look at it real closely, I love to think about mental health with paintings. If you look at it real closely, it's almost like he was looking at the sky through teary eyes, because the water in your eyes sometimes creates a halo around light. And to me, and no one's ever talked to me about what it actually means, but to me, it was almost like his eyes, the tears in his eyes were causing the light, the stars to actually have halos and you know, plumes coming out of them and the swirls. So that painting means a lot to me too. And I've actually been able to, I actually was commissioned to do one for a woman and shipped it out to her in Oregon. She loves that painting as well. And then I kept one for myself. In fact, that is one of the first paintings our granddaughters learned about. I think it's important for little toddlers to learn about art. So every time I pass that painting in our house, I'll say, what's this painting? Starry Night. She's 2. Who painted it? Vincent van Gogh. You know, she says it as well as she can. It's just, it's so meaningful just to add that touch of art, you know, that depth to our relationship besides just the typical playing together, you know.
And they just soak it in so naturally.
They do.
And it's so great to hear them just speak of it in a very, you know, I have some collections of precious moments. Well, now my grandchildren are like, Grandma, you know, where are the precious moments? And then they go and they use the precious moments and they create stories. I mean, they actually, you know, use them. They don't really play with them in terms of running around the house, but they will set them up on the shelf where they're displayed, and they'll create like the nativity scene and different things.
Wonderful.
So it's really very heartwarming to see them appreciate it, things that you appreciate so much, you know, and so
I agree. And they're unabridged, unabashed creativity as far as using their imagination without shame. You know, sometimes we adults are stage shy because we're afraid that if we actually perform and you know, to be someone we're not, we're going to be ridiculed or made fun of. These young kids will just dance their heart out, act their heart out, play their heart out. I was on a FaceTime call with my granddaughter last night, and she was jumping on her little trampoline she got for Christmas. And I had one of our little stuffed bears with me, and she asked if Mama Bear could jump with her. And so here, she's in South Dakota, and I'm here. Our son's in Cleveland. But she's in South Dakota and we play together. I had Mama Bear. I was just making her jump up and down and she's just having so much fun with Mama Bear. Are you having fun, Mama Bear? You know, just so unabashed. It's wonderful to see. There's just no inhibitions.
They came on the show with me a couple times on Feelin Good, and they would watch from the couch in the studio, and they would watch me here. So I bought them karaoke machines, and each one has a microphone, and so I try to just naturally have them perform like a Christmas song they did after Christmas Eve dinner. So I'm just as part, and so they feel very comfortable using a microphone, and and they watch everybody watching them, and it doesn't really seem to faze them. You know, they're
what a wonderful experience to give them at such a young age. You know, especially in a day and age when one of the best skills we can have is public speaking. You know, in any job we have, to be able to feel comfortable in front of a group, speaking in front of a group. To give your grandchildren that opportunity is going to set them, you know, in a wonderful direction in whatever, you know, field they choose, you know.
No, they love the applause now from our family. So I think that'll carry through. So
I think so too.
I as you're talking about the painting, I'm noticing behind you on your wall is some of your woodworking. Tell us a little bit about the woodworking.
Well, you know, when I was a teacher at Springboro, I had student teachers. Wonderful experience of helping people to learn to become teachers. In Miami University at that time, if you had student teachers, would give you a voucher for 3 credits, 6 credits to take a class there. And so one of the classes I took following having a student teacher was a woodworking class in the summer. And I learned how to use a table saw and a planer and a miter saw and all these different pieces of equipment. I was able to make some window boxes and a drop leaf table. I used a router. I started thinking this woodworking is a lot of fun, but I never had the equipment. So I used that facility to make what I could while I was there. And then when I got home, I thought, I got to come up with some equipment. Well, I lived over in Lebanon off of Carson Drive on Patterson Court at the time. And behind us, someone was having a garage sale and they were selling their old table saw and miter saw for like $10 a piece. They were dangerous, but I didn't care. One didn't have the guard on it any longer. I mean, the cords were kind of frayed, but I thought, oh, I can make these work. I'll wrap them with electric tape because, you know, I didn't know if I would go with it. You don't want to spend $300 and $400 on a piece of equipment if you don't know you're really going to like it. And so I started cutting wood, but I didn't go buy new wood because that's a waste of good money. I just found scrap wood. You know, one of my philosophies is you never pass by a pile of trash without considering something useful in it. And I pull wood out of trash. My neighbors had all kinds of extra boards from their picket fence. He let me have those. And I started making trays, you know, just little table trays and things like that. And it was so much fun. So my woodworking started just with those pieces of equipment that I got at a garage sale, probably about right after I retired. And then for my birthday last year, I was able to get a new table saw and a new miter saw and a new belt sander. And this year I was able to get a router and a band saw and got all kinds of fun stuff to play with.
Oh, now I know.
Now I'm making wood items.
Going to say, now I know where I can come to get to take more lessons, and where the equipment is at your house. And because I wanted to take wood shop when I was in high school. Well, that was before Title IX, and girls didn't take wood shop, so so didn't take it. It wasn't until probably about 15 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I always loved things made out of wood, but I knew this couple that had woodworking. They had the whole woodworking shop in their basement, all the exhaust systems, everything. Yes. And little did I realize that, I was visiting them. So I came kind of dressed up. Well, they kind of chuckled when I walked in because they said, Shell, if you're going to do woodworking, you're not going to wear a black turtleneck with black pants or whatever,
Right.
So I had the apron on and so forth. Well, we worked with black walnut. And the first time, and they had black walnut, and they brought it in, they demonstrated. The first bowl I ever made, was like learning how to use the chisel and the lathe and different things. And then when you put the oil on afterwards, and you just see the beauty of the wood start to, and I was like, oh my gosh. So the next Christmas, I said to my boys, when they said, Mom, what would you like for Christmas? I said, I would love a lathe. And they said, Mom, where would you put a lathe if you had one? Because the garage just didn't have any more room.
Yeah.
So to this day, I still don't have a lathe, but I like to know where I can find those kinds of things.
That's one of my goals, Shelly. Do you have your bowl with you?
Well, what happened was when I moved from Lebanon and downsized, I found that the bowl, I guess it had split or something. It had dried out, but I did still I made candle holders where I used a router and so forth. And I do still have those, but I was just looking through the Cincy magazine yesterday, and they have all this woodworking available.
Wonderful.
So many girls taking the woodworking classes. I was like, yes, I am signing up for this, type
how
thing.
do we, the Cincinnati magazine, I don't have a copy. How do we get access? Are they online as well?
So just go online, and the current one looks like this.
Okay.
And then they have these other editions. Supplements. And the reason I had this opened, I was so pleased that our Feelin Good show was a finalist in this nonprofit competition, I guess.
Congratulations, Shelly.
Both submitted. We weren't the winner, but we were a finalist. So I was happy about
just
that.
To be recognized like that, what an honor. You're doing a wonderful job.
But when you say the woodworking, there's just something, like you almost can't explain it when it's something so beautiful that you're creating. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this. So the reason I bring this up is not to say, oh, look what I did, but to tell the audience, you can do these things. You can do these things. And I have to chuckle when you mentioned about being resourceful, because that's another place that I would always see Molly. Molly and I would always be shopping for resourceful kinds of things. I said, it must be the teacher in me, because it's hard for me to throw anything away. I always think, oh, I could use that for something, You can.
Let me give you an example, Shelly. And I agree with Shelly. I went to Goodwill. There was a beautiful formal gown that was $1. I don't know what they had, a special sale. And, it's a size 7. I couldn't wear a size 7 brown formal gown, but that fabric, the satin, I brought it home. I cut the satin skirt off of it. It was a long dress. I had probably 3 yards of gorgeous brown satin fabric. So before you throw your clothing away, think about what you can do with it. I made a beautiful drawstring gift bag for someone. I made a set of trays for a wedding for someone. And I actually put the trays in the satin bag. They thought I spent $20 on satin for the bag. It was probably 50 cents worth, because I still had the other half of the satin left, So, yes.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you when you were starting to talk more about the wood pieces and things. I love that recent wall hanging.
This one behind me? Yes. Well, I love woodworking, as you know, and I saw this. I was on Etsy and looking for pieces of woodwork that were for sale. partly just to get ideas, and other parts, maybe there's something I would want to buy. And normally I try to make my own, but every now and then I like to buy something. Well, I saw a lot of pieces of DIY woodworking art that were made from strips of scrap wood. And I fell in love with them. And this is a similar piece to one that I saw on Etsy. And so it took quite a while to do, because I had to cut all the strips in 1/2-inch widths, but then you also want to give it some dimensions. So some are higher than others. And then I wanted to choose the right color. So, I had to sand them down, I had to paint them. And then I always use polyacrylic. I don't use polyurethane, because urethane tends to yellow, and I just can't stand that golden color that everything turns into. So I used polyacrylic to finish it, and made the frame for Christmas this year. My son and his wife, they live in Cleveland. They gave me some of those corner clamps for making frames. So, okay. Asking for woodworking pieces. Now, another thing I saw on Etsy that I loved was the cutouts. I have one here, but I think you'll see them online too. Cutouts that were framed. And on Etsy, these were just shadow pieces, like silhouettes. They were black. And, I thought, I'm really not a fan of just a figure in a box like that. But what if I used my bandsaw that I got for my birthday, and I cut out figures that I liked, and instead of just a black silhouette, try to create a copper look. I love patinas, that aged look. So all I did there was I painted it with a copper paint. And then I just used a mixture of greens and blues and grays and things to kind of sponge on with a sea sponge, a patina look. And those are gifts. Most of the things that I have ended up making, which there are plenty of things out there, I give as gifts. I don't.
Oh, what a wonderful gift.
Don't
keep something that you made. Right.
Yeah, 2 of the other items that I made that are gifts, and I actually asked for them back in the person's will. My mother, we were looking through a magazine. We're from Arizona. We love Southwest art. We were looking through an art magazine, and she saw a beautiful painting by a woman named Lisa Daniel, and it was being sold out in Tlaquepaque in Sedona, Arizona. And have you been to Sedona?
I have not, but I've been close by, but I never got to Sedona. So everybody said, oh my gosh, you must go there.
It's a bucket list place. There is a little village called Tlaquepaque, and there are many art stores in there. And Lisa Daniel had some beautiful pieces in there. And one was called Hopi Priorities in this magazine. My mother found it and almost had a tear in her eye. She loved it so much, but it was $4,900. So she looked at me and said, Molly, can you do this for me? I said, sure. The Lebanon band was having a rummage sale. Now, Lisa's piece is 36 by 36. They were having a rummage sale, and I was looking all over that rummage sale for a 36 by 36 frame, and I found one. So thank you, Lebanon band. And I had $10 frame, and then I cut a piece of, I just get like a piece of plywood, not really plywood. What is it called? It's that board that has little holes in it, with panel board. Holes in it. Yeah, it didn't have holes in it. So I went ahead and I just painted right on that board. It's not a canvas. A lot of my paintings are on a piece of wood that I put in the frame that I find at a thrift store. So the Hopi Priorities was painted for her, and I'm getting that back. And then my aunt, who lives in Phoenix as well, is in love with Indian art. She found on a little greeting card a painting by Daniel Ramirez. It's called Butterfly Dancers. And just a group of several Indians dressed in butterfly costume dancing around. And she gave me this little greeting card, probably a 5 by 6, and said, could you paint this in an 18 by 24 for me or whatever? I said, sure. So she has it in her wall, but on the back of it, it said, we'll return to Molly. Some of these pieces, I'd like to come back to the family, I think when we get older, we start thinking about what can I leave behind? Musicians left beautiful pieces of music, chefs may leave recipes that are carried on through, culinary skills carried on forever, and I thought, what can I leave behind? And I think these pieces I'm creating are kind of my way of leaving something behind for my family, something that grandma did, something that,
Exactly. And I have to say that that's what I've been, and that's one of my New Year's resolutions, is something I've started during this time we've been at home more, is gathering. My dad recorded my brother and me growing up on the 8mm Bell and Howell movie camera.
Oh, yes.
With the floodlights on the light bar. And so I have those of all of our birthdays, Christmases, parades we ever were in, so forth.
Wow.
So then Dad got the movie recorder, video
Camcorder. Yeah.
Camcorder. And so I was watching hours worth of the Christmases past. And the thing about the camcorders is I miss hearing my mom and dad's voice. Oh. And so it was so great to see them and see my boys and see my brother, his wife, my niece and nephew, and hear their voices as well. But what I'm doing is I'm digitizing all that. And I got a converter. And thanks to Paul and Dave, who help us as cameramen on this show.
Yes.
They have really helped me, with like Flickr programs and other kinds of programs that you can use to kind of put stories together through photography. So I guess that's what I've been doing more with photography as opposed to painting as much, but with the same end goal in mind, is leaving a family story, leaving a legacy, type of thing. So,
Shelly, that's a beautiful idea.
And then my son got me a Storyworth, and I don't know if you've seen it advertised.
I have. Oprah Winfrey talks a lot about it. Yeah.
So I entered my first week's question was, what was your mom like when you were growing up? And so then I wrote it I used my phone and wrote it and attached a photo. And so I will have 52 stories that will then be at the end of the year. This company will put them in a book.
Nice.
And bind them in a book. And I entitled it Reflections. And so that's my way of leaving a story along with the photos and the movies and so forth. So I'm hoping it has a similar effect to what you're doing.
I surely do need to have all my pictures organized. That's the problem with the digital era, is that we don't need to print everything out now. We save them all on some type of a hard drive. And it's difficult to organize them all when you have years and years of video. And so I applaud you for putting all that time and effort into that. It's worth it, though.
Just beginning, because it really does take time to do that. But I've taken a couple classes through Miami ILR, and I hope you'll join us maybe in April of 2021. We're planning our spring term, and we will be online. So you can take all the classes right online, and it's actually worked out quite well to be able, rather than going in person to Miami, the different campuses, we take them online. So,
do you have a list of courses that are being offered for 2020?
Our catalog will be printed for the spring term, probably in February. So,
all right.
Sure, February, March. So I'll send you a copy online, and then you can sign up. I mean, it's $115 for unlimited courses. That's it.
Okay, I'd love to see a list of the courses for sure.
Very affordable, and you would love it. So, well, thank you. Is it? Do you have future projects that you have?
Well, I do. I have actually been commissioned to do commission. That's such a fancy term. I've been asked to create another piece like the one behind me, but this couple would like one that is of a sunrise, and so a half arc or half circle with the rays coming out of it in wood. So I have a plan to do that. And then my daughter-in-law loves this piece, and she would like one that's vertical to go behind their dining room table to cover over an electric panel. You know, nothing like covering, you know, those things with art. And then someone dropped off their 100-year-old Singer sewing machine cabinet. I've already refinished one. And this lady asked if I could do hers. So I've got to do that. And then we ordered one of those fire pits, and it had slate inlaid in the metal frame, and it arrived and it was broken. So they sent another piece out. Well, now I have this beautiful frame for the tabletop with broken slate. And I think I am not throwing that away because that will come in handy. I'm going to go ahead and use that as my frame to create a perpetual calendar. I'll fill those areas that had slate with wood and paint on the wood, or do something maybe, I don't know, something more geometric, like Frank Lloyd Wright type thing in there. And then the middle will be will be a magnetic board. And I'll put just a template for a calendar there and make little wood pieces. And that will be kind of like a perpetual calendar. I'll share that with you when I get that.
Oh, please do. It's so funny that you mentioned Frank Lloyd Wright, because I was just going to ask you if you'd ever, that's one of my favorite designers.
Oh, I love Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yes, Frank Lloyd Wright. And one of my girlfriends actually lives in one of their houses. One of the houses he designed. And they do a tour every year called the Wright Home Tour at WRIGHT.
Is that in Chicago?
It is.
Yeah.
And it's so,
I've seen pictures.
It's so great. I'll send you the picture of the house.
Your girlfriend lives in the Wright home?
Well, she lives in one of the houses that he was
one of
designed.
those.
In the neighborhood where there's several, but it's right, near the gift shop and his workshop. Right. But anyway, I'm drawn to that. So I think you would love to see, different designs and so on. And of course, the house in Springfield, Ohio. Have you ever been there, the Frank Lloyd Wright house?
I haven't been to that one, but we have some friends who just moved from Lebanon, Janet and Tony Collins. They built a Frank Lloyd Wright-esque house off of Manistee Lakes. You know where that street is? Beautiful little drive out off of Phillips Road. And it's the closest I had ever come to knowing someone who lived in a home that followed the vein of Frank Lloyd Wright. But if you go out to Phoenix in the Scottsdale area, there's Taliesin, which I've been there twice. So interesting. I haven't been into Falling Water, but I've been right at the driveway, and we didn't have enough time to go in. So we said we'll have to take time and come back. But yes, please do. I'd like to go to Falling Water as well. So Frank Lloyd Wright, he's one that I'd like to try to mimic in something I do as well. And I thought maybe this perpetual frame will have something, that resembles his work. So we'll see.
As our audience can see, we could go on talking about this. But I just have enjoyed reconnecting. We haven't really seen each other lately.
We need to play some pickleball.
But we need to play. Oh, we didn't even talk about pickleball. I know you and Bert very involved in the pickleball tournaments, big tournaments.
I do not play tournaments. Once you play tournaments, it becomes work, and I don't want pickleball to be work. I want it to be fun. So he likes
you designed the logos, right?
Yeah, I do graphic. I designed the Middletown Pickleball Association logo and Ohio Pickleball, and I've done a lot of other logo designs for people, helping them create their brand. That's something else I do. I do a lot of Photoshop things. So but pickleball is a lot of fun. And we have now 3 courts down in Lebanon. We have courts in Mason, several different courts in Mason. We have places all over Warren County. We have pickleball courts that you can find. And it's a lot more forgiving game than tennis as far as on your body go. Tennis, you do a lot of running, and the court's pretty big compared to pickleball. It's a small court, it's a lot of fun. So I'd encourage people to give it a try.
Well, if any of our viewers are interested in contacting you, I don't know if you are interested in more work or more commissions in terms of commissioning an art piece, but they could contact Channel 6 and they could contact Feelin Good, and then we could connect you.
Or, I mean, they can look for me. I mean, they look for me. A lot of my things I do on Facebook are public. They can look for Molly Wray, and my maiden name's Flynn. So in parentheses, they'll find Flynn. They can always send me a message through Facebook if they're not on Facebook. If they'd like to email me, I'll share my email. It's molly.ray@yahoo.com. They could email me that way. Or if they see me on the street, just make sure they stop and say hi, and we'll chat.
Very good. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shelly.
You've given us so many ideas about being resourceful, and maybe our audience members will try something new, find a new passion during the winter, especially that will keep them feeling good.
That's right.
So, we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye, Shelly.